Hello there, I'm MountPain27 and this is Dean of Doom, the show we give grades to classic and contemporary Doom wads. Why? Because ranking things is fun. Today's episode will be dedicated to Back to Saturn X Episode 1, Get Out of My Stations. This first entry in a planned trilogy was released in 2012 to very positive community reception, and this year it was made available as an official add-on for Bethesda's Doom Classic Unity port. The Back to Saturn X project was founded and is still led by Sarah Mancuso, also known as Esselfortium, who recruited some of the biggest names in Doom mapping to her cause. Seriously, it's like a who's who of the community. Btsx is known for its thoroughly overhauled texture set, distinctive palette, and by design compatibility with vanilla Doom 2, which makes some of the things they accomplish on screen even more impressive than they appear at first glance. The series also features some of the most memorable and quirky level titles you'll see in Doom, which are all derived from songs and albums by the band Guided by Voices. I'd suggest you give them a look, but you came to me for Doom reviews, not music recommendations, so let's get to it. Before we dive in, here's how the show works. We give each level on the wad 2 grades, one for quality and one for difficulty. We grade quality from A to F, and difficulty from X to E. X for extreme, E for easy, and A through D in between. A grade A level is fun, memorable, visually distinctive, creative, and a fair challenge. Lower grades indicate the level lacks some or all of these qualities. Bear in mind that I'm a Doom everyman, and these reviews were not handed to me on stone tablets, so our definitions of difficulty and great map design will surely differ. Disagreeing is part of the fun, after all. At the end of the day, this show is really about spreading the joy of Doom, so let's do so. For the new viewers in the audience, here are the rules. 1. We play on ultraviolence. 2. We play each level from a pistol start. 3. In order to review the wad, I must have played it at least twice. 4. Saves are allowed but discouraged. And 5, I go for 100% kills in all levels, making exceptions in cases where it's just not worth it. I play on Z-Doom with compatibility settings on strict. Now, to the wad. Map 1, Back to Saturn X Radio Report. It's a thankless task being the first map. Most megawads will feed you double-digit fodder enemies, a few clever secrets, and maybe a good MIDI in the opener, but rarely will they try to wow you or introduce major combat set pieces for fear of setting unrealistic expectations or scaring off new players. That's not Back to Saturn X. Even though Btsx Radio Report is a straightforward tech-based level at its core, it absolutely puts its best foot forward in every aspect. The texturing, architecture, and lighting are actually more painstaking than they look. Seriously, there's so much variety, depth, detail in every room, every wall, every nook and cranny. It's gorgeous and impressive, all without being overwhelming or overly showy. The visuals are pitch perfect all the way through this wad, so if I don't keep saying so, it's because I'm trying not to repeat myself. Btsx Radio Report doesn't let you sleepwalk your way through it either, especially if you find this secret area. Holy mackerel. Pretty much every monster except the Archvile and the Doom 1 bosses get introduced here. From now on, everything is fair game. This might not be the best opening map I've ever played, but it sets the tone perfectly and captures the spirit of the whole project in under 10 minutes of playtime, which I think is extremely impressive. Grade A-, difficulty C-. Map 2, Postal Blowfish. Postal Blowfish is upbeat and succinct, 2 words I wouldn't normally use to describe Back to Saturn X. You'll get the rocket launcher right off the bat, and the field is littered with explosive barrels, so don't be afraid to cut loose. I remember these early levels being more forgettable, but this and the entire first third of the Megawad are for the most part high-octane stuff. Grade B+, difficulty D. Map 3, The Room Taking Shape. With a dynamic duo, you can't go wrong. And by dynamic duo, I mean Skillsaw and Stewboy. Despite owning the lowest enemy count in the wad, the room taking shape is vivacious, with the ambush in the yellow key room standing out the most. These crushers are a creative touch, as they can block incoming Mancubus fireballs as easily as they can squash you. The hardest challenge you'll face in this level, however, is the overwhelming urge you'll get to drop your mouse and start dancing. As Btsx progresses, you'll look back fondly on shorter levels like this. Not a moment in this map is wasted. Excellent stuff. Grade A, difficulty C. Map 4, A Good Flying Bird. You'd think with titles as wacky as these, the levels would be more easily distinguished from one another, but A Good Flying Bird is just another short and snappy map with few landmarks or major fights to speak of. I guess that's one of the drawbacks of the custom resources. Back to Saturn X as a whole looks like no other Megawad, at the cost of some of its levels running together in the player's memory. I do like this fight where you take an elevator down into an ambush and meet the wad's first Barons of Hell, which look especially hot pink in this color palette. Outside of that, this map is a breeze. Grade B, difficulty D+. Map 5, Total Exposure. As the title implies, this map plays around with more open spaces than you've seen so far. You'll be dealing with a lot of snipers, long-range demons, and corridors where you'll have to do without cover. These outdoor areas give me the chance to talk about the skyboxes in this WOD, which are cosmic and resplendent. Related, Back to Saturn X is a welcome break from the multitude of hell-themed WODs out there. I've always been partial to the community's more whimsical creations, and I think Btsx fits that description. Total Exposure goes out with a bang. This fight with 2 Archviles, their posse, and a Cyber Demon turret is a masterclass in applying pressure, and I'd call it the first real ball-breaking fight in the Mega WOD. This is Walker Wright's only contribution to the set, and this map kinda makes me wish we could have seen more from him. Grade, A-, difficulty, C+. Map 6, Mix Up the Satellite. This is where Back to Saturn X starts turning up the temperature. You get a super shotgun right away, and a rocket launcher not long after, and you'll need them for this Archvile and his gang of heavies. This map in particular really likes Archviles, and it contains one of the most memorable Archie-related set pieces in the WOD. This room full of dead enemies can only mean one thing. The ending is also pretty punishing, with its plethora of paint elementals and other assorted badness, to say nothing of this very spooky monster closet. If you've been saving your rockets, it's no sweat, but I can imagine a first-timer getting burned here. I find myself getting lost in this level less often than I do in the rest of the WOD for some reason. I'm not complaining. Grade B+, difficulty B. Map 7, Metal Mothers. This is a level you won't forget. Metal Mothers is home to 7 spider masterminds, and they don't come singly either. Before you panic, remember that spider masterminds are hit scanners, and can be made to infight with one another. I won't go so far as to say the Metal Mothers are harmless, but with proper positioning and enough shotgun shells, they can be quickly neutralized. This level also makes very creative use of its hard-coded Map 7 mechanics, hiding a Mancubus in the wall here, which if you kill will lower a sector, and give you an automat for your trouble. I appreciate this level's incorporation of more outdoor scenery. It helps me fend off the tech-based fatigue somewhat. If you want to get 100% kills, don't miss this secret BFG, which actually contains one of the trickier fights in the level. Metal Mothers is one of the best maps in Btsx's first third. It masquerades as a gimmick level, but it's a lot more substantive than that. Grade A-, difficulty B-. Map 8, Get Out of My Stations 1. There's something beautifully lonesome about this hub level, the first of 3. It's so rare in Doom that you get to stop shooting and just take a breath. I have a lot of fondness for this little railway station, and I think the continuity and ambience it adds to this episode is invaluable. These gentle, melancholy in-between moments stick with you as much as anything else in Back to Saturn X and separate it from the crowd. My grade for this, and all the hub levels, is an A, with no grade for difficulty. Map 9, Some Drilling Implied. I'll cut to the chase. The middle third of Back to Saturn X is its weakest. If you didn't notice it by now, a lot of these maps look and play very similarly, and every time I go back to this Mega WOD, maps 9 through 15 run together the most. There's definitely a formula for your standard Back to Saturn X level, and it goes something like this. Start the player looking down a hallway or around the corner from a few weak monsters huddled around explosive barrels, flanked by a bunch of heavies that the player won't be able to kill till they get a better weapon, which they'll find a few rooms away. Once they're minimally equipped, send the player on a hunt for probably all 3 keys, and try to put each key and its door close together, so the player won't get lost trying to backtrack. Unless it's a big open area or a clearly telegraphed ambush, you should only be lightly sprinkling the player with demons. Remember, every fight should be trivial, unless the player is grabbing a key or finding an important secret, but you do get 1 free Archvile trap per level, so long as you don't make it too hard. Make sure the player could, in theory, navigate around your level smoothly, but don't sacrifice the overall look of your map for the sake of signposting. That would be silly. Finally, your level should take an average player at least 20 minutes to finish. It's not like this formula makes bad levels, but playing that type of map 18 f***ing times does get old. I can't really describe for you a single, truly standout moment or visual in Some Drilling Implied, except maybe this farewell party at the exit, which can be easily dispersed with rockets. Grade C+, difficulty B-. Map 10, A Proud and Booming Industry. Another underwhelming map, this time it's the work of Skillsaw, whose signature I really only notice in this lethal hit scanner valley and this room right at the end. Forcing you to avoid a pair of Archviles' lines of sight while battling other foes is vintage Skillsaw. Outside those all-too-brief encounters, this map sticks to the 20-minute tech-based formula religiously. The combat here is actually flat-out boring, which I've never said about Skillsaw's work before, and I'm unlikely to again. None of these maps are completely unenjoyable, mind you, but they're hard to review because they're all so alike. Grade C+, difficulty B-. Map 11, The Colossus Crawls West. Another map, another suppressed yawn. It's surprising how even a veteran like Ed Cripps can conform so completely to the expected pacing and visual design of a typical Btsx level. The fights are so humdrum here that I leaned on Berserk just because it made things interesting, and I audibly said thank God when this double Archvile trap happened. It's honestly a shame how easily Back to Saturn X spoils you. It's It's not like I wish the WAD was less consistently pretty or balanced, but monotony is a natural byproduct of Btsx's homogeneous level design, I guess. Again, grade C+, difficulty B-. Map 12, Underground Initiations. Oh man, hold on a second. See, just to prepare to review this level, I need to get up and stretch, because we're gonna be here a while. The short version is, now I know how people who don't play Doom feel when they play Doom. I'm lost. Where am I going? 7 secrets? Where? I haven't seen any. Oh my god, I've been playing this level for 45 minutes? When is this gonna be over? I'm exaggerating. A little. Underground Initiations is not the longest map I played by any stretch, and it's not terribly hard except as an endurance test, but it takes the 20-minute tech-based formula and multiplies it by 2, which just doesn't equal fun for me, at least not after the first 20 minutes. See, I like big, non-linear maps when they give me a bunch of distinct landmarks to explore, but this is just another giant tech base. It's not an epic, like Anagnorisis from Eternity, or the Citadel from, well, Epic. It's just a long map. Sure, there are tons of secrets to explore, but with the exception of this admittedly thrilling Megasphere trap, they only serve to hide items you don't really need and draw out 100% runs. This rocky area outside, with the sniping hit scanners, arachnotrons, and clusters of fireball-chucking demons, is the mapmaker's only attempt to shake things up aesthetically, and caves are clearly not this texture pack's specialty. Underground Initiations does have one ace up its sleeve, and that's Jimmy Paddock's electrifying MIDI. Btsx track gives every fight a much-needed adrenaline shot and makes the inevitable long gaps between fights not as boring. I'm prepared to take flack for this review, because I can honestly say I've never enjoyed playing this level. It's at the confluence of Back to Saturn X's tendency to favor sprawl over substance and half a megawatt's worth of tech-based fatigue. Grade C, difficulty B+. Map 13, I'll Replace You with Machines. I consider this something of a rebound map. I'll Replace You with Machines is a bit more aggressive pound for pound than the 4 previous maps and roughens up its look sufficiently for it to feel different than the cleaner, shinier tech bases leading up to it. The fights here are mostly brisk. This Archie double whammy hits hard. This scrap by the blue key lets you blow off some steam with the plasma, and I like this Revenant ambush because it got my heart rate up from a consistent 80 beats per minute for the first time in 2 hours. Even though I get the feeling this was meant to be a shorter map, it still pushes 20 minutes if you're going at a casual pace. Grade B, difficulty B-. Map 14, Big Chief Chinese Restaurant. I gotta say, this is my favorite level title in the WAD. I really like the idea of Doom Guy crashing a Chinese restaurant overrun with demonic invaders, or better yet, a Chinese restaurant owned and operated by demons. The action has a lot of spring in its step. I like the Archvile ambushes, the Mancubus-infested outdoor storage area, and this wetland out back that gets swamped with revenants when you grab the yellow key. Maybe it's just because the maps leading up to it give me a headache, but I enjoy Big Chief Chinese Restaurant. Grade B+, difficulty B-. Map 15, Tricyclic Looper. Possibly the most tech-basey tech base that is ever tech-based, Tricyclic Looper is a fitting end to the middle third of Back to Saturn X, a labyrinthine shoot-'em-up with 9 secrets that's probably even harder to find your way around than Underground Initiations. Unlike that map, however, the secrets will substantially aid you, especially this plasma rifle, which you normally only obtain right at the end. Most of the action retains the room-by-room plod that makes up the rest of this WAD. This one's a little more cramped than usual, actually, but there are a few genuinely exciting, or at least different, moments here and there, like this Cacodemon cloud that closes in when you get the red key. To access the secret exit, you'll need to break into the secure mainframe room and get the blue key. It's a cool idea for a stage, but I always forget the order of operations here and spend like 5 minutes running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Tricyclic Looper is one of Back to Saturn X's best looking maps, with diverse lighting, neat structures, and solid monster placement to complement it. Swerving into the tech-based skid wasn't such a bad idea this time. Grade B+, difficulty B. Map 31, Optical Hopscotch. Back to Saturn X's secret maps are a much-needed break from the workmanlike pace of its standard levels. Both are the work of Skillsaw, whose style never feels less cramped than an optical hopscotch. It could have easily been retextured and shipped for use in Valiant, with this menacing Archvile Revenant fight, this cheeky triple Cyberdemon ambush at the end, and these fun telefrag segments that I always assume is supposed to be optical hopscotch. Valiant players in the audience, tell me this Megasphere secret when you're jumping from platform to precarious platform doesn't remind you of the precipice. This level is one of my favorite tracks in Btsx. I thought it was Stuart Rinn at first, but it's actually Esselfortium's work. Its bouncy techno vibe is the perfect accompaniment for a secret map, and a welcome change of pace from the cold intensity that's led up to it. One of my biggest gripes with Back to Saturn X is the lack of authorial autonomy its mapmakers are allowed. Thankfully, Skillsaw got to be the exception. Grade A-, difficulty B+. Map 32, the hard way. I love this map. It's hard to describe, but when you spent all day grinding your way through samey tech bases, scrabbling around for like 2 missing enemies, IDDTing and id-clipping only to find you didn't pick up an armor, which would have triggered a wall lowering to reveal 2 revenants, the hard way doesn't hide anything. It's not complicated to get around, it's just a flat, open playground of death, chock full of rapid-fire fights and engineered for you to blow off steam. This double cyber demon fight where they can't get at you without shooting their way through barrens and Mancubi as a treat. This yellow key ambush is incredibly cathartic, and I really like the last leg of the map where you're blasting through ambushes, jumping, guns blazing into more ambushes. It's incredible. The placement of this map alone is worth an A, and I'll give it a difficulty of B+. Map 16, Get Out of My Stations 2, is the second hub level. Map 17, Navigating Flood Regions. Okay, we're through the worst of it. Back to Saturn X Episode 1 hits its stride in the final stretch, starting with Navigating Flood Regions. This map is tight and explosive and contains one of my favorite fights in the Megawatt, this Archvile triple team over this poison reservoir. The second half of the map really breaks in the Back to Saturn pattern. This dark room is aesthetic, open, and full of foreshadowing. When you take this evil red teleporter, you'll find yourself in a wrecked parallel version of the opening area. I'm not sure what the story is here, but it seems like a pretty fascinating one. Did the complex get flooded with poison? Is this some kind of parallel dimension? Did you time travel? Anyway, there's no going back. This is one of Sarah Mancuso's strongest levels, and it gets the Megawatt back on track. Grade, A-, difficulty, B+. Oh my god, under 15 minutes. Map 18, Cyclone Utilities, Remember Your Birthday. Man, that title's brilliant. I don't know what it means, but still. Cyclone Utilities improves on Underground Initiation's non-linear 3-pronged key hunt significantly. The visuals are nothing to write home about, fair enough, but these fights are way more memorable and exciting than anything in Map 12. Getting the yellow key culminates in some incredible bloodshed. There's this firefight in the room where cacodemons rise out of these water tanks, and then you jump down into a massive ambush with several archviles and a mess of demons that teleport in. It's a phenomenal demonstration of power for the plasma gun. This last secret before the exit room has 3 supercharges, which should give you an idea of what you're in for. A constant barrage of fireballs from revenants and Mancubi, a very hectic ambush at the top of this elevator ride, and when you hit this button, 3 more archviles get released into the molten arena below. Remember Your Birthday is a nice reminder that Back to Saturn X has a pulse. Grade, A-, difficulty, B+. Map 19, Bingo Pool Hall of Blood. First off, kudos to Back to Saturn X for trying something completely different. Bingo Pool Hall of Blood totally rejects the 20-minute tech-based formula and hits like an ALS Ice Bucket Challenge in the middle of February for a newcomer to this WAD. It resembles a Doom 2 city level, except it's crawling with archviles, pain elementals, and cacodemons, all commanded by a spider demon. To survive this gauntlet, you'll need to sprint for the plasma gun, then dart for a teleporter that takes you to an invulnerability, battle your way up a tower and get to the yellow key and another invulnerability, shoot this tiny window which you'd have to be almost omniscient to find on your first playthrough, then open the yellow door, take an elevator ride with an archvile, take another elevator to the roof, jump down an air shaft, and teleport to the BFG. From here, scramble to the secret area that opened when you shot that window earlier, get a third invuln, and wipe out as much of this chaos as possible before time runs out. This map really irritates me. If you're Kama Sutra, or Hell Revealed 2, or Scythe 2, basically if you stake your reputation on being punishing, then Bingo Pool Hall of Blood comes as no surprise. But when you're back to Saturn X, a level like this disrupts everything you've been trying to do. That is, render a continuous world of similarly themed levels on a gradual and controlled difficulty curve. You know what? I wish more Back to Saturn X was like this. Unpredictable, risk-taking, with its action boldly flavored. What really bothers me about Bingo Pool Hall of Blood is not that it's mean, but that it's an anomaly. Grade, B+, difficulty, A. Map 20, U.S. Mustard Company. If Back to Saturn X Episode 1 was a symphony, this map would be the beginning of its final movement. U.S. Mustard Company is bleak, somber, and, owing to its excellent lighting, has one of the more memorable opening rooms in the WAD. Designer Matt Sibulus owes Jimmy Panic a beer for this soundtrack, as it takes care of the map's atmosphere all by itself. The level is stacked with secrets, and while they're not always helpful, they're far less obtuse than much of what you'll find in the rest of the WAD. U.S. Mustard Company doesn't lean too much on its action, it's more of a suspense builder and offers a reprieve from the sprint of the past 3 maps. I'm not sure if all 300 monsters are necessary, but it's much less draggy than most of Btsx's middle third, so I don't mind. Grade, A-, difficulty, B. Map 21, Failed Experiments and Trashed Aircraft. Just what the doctor ordered. This map's low monster count and relatively compact layout make for the perfect upshift from US Mustard Company. This is a tick down difficulty-wise from what's come before, no doubt designed to give you some momentum as you near the finish line. The visuals seem to harken back to architecture from the earliest maps in the WAD. This room reminds me a bit of the one from Total Exposure, for example. There's not very much to say about this one. The music, brevity, and sense of urgency move things along nicely. Grade B, difficulty C+. Map 22, gonna never have to die. One last shadowy tech base to conquer and we'll be on to the last level. Guess we're gonna never have to die then. I think that's the only joke I've made in this video and it wasn't even funny. Gonna never have to die is questionable English, but unquestionably great. The fights are tightly packed, the lights are low, and the Esselfortium music is dramatic as all hell. It practically bleeds penultimate level vibes. This map has one of the best endings in the WAD, an archvile ambush crammed with imps, followed by an unprecedentedly heated encounter in this storage area with a squad of foot soldiers, a perimeter full of snipers, and a cyber demon who's got the high ground. Along with the yellow key fight in map 18, this is one of my favorite battles in Back to Saturn X, top-notch semi-final level. Grade A, difficulty B+. Map 23, Get Out of My Stations 3, is the third and final hub level. Map 24, Tough Skin River. Everything, and I mean everything, comes down to this map. And by that I mean everything comes down to one fight in this map. Now don't get me wrong, the change to outdoor scenery is very refreshing, even if Back to Saturn X's color palette kinda makes everything look the same, but there's virtually nothing special about Tough Skin River outside of the fight. Okay, this imp inundation is pretty cool, and this archvile encounter is best handled gingerly, but when the time comes to grab the red key, you'll have to jump down here. This watery, vine-draped, mancubus-infested hell of an arena. Grab the red key, the megasphere, and as much ammo as you can carry, because you are in for a finale with a capital F. It's such a dramatic moment. When you grab the red key and there's just silence, until you hear the low growls of monsters all around you, and cacodemons start spilling over the fence. After the cacodemons, there's a wave of imps and pinkies, then a wave of mancubi, then a bunch of archviles, revenants, and finally 2 cyber demons. If you want to live, don't take your finger off the trigger. Now, I'm not really qualified to offer advice on this fight because I've never beaten it without saves, but I suggest keeping the big demons at bay with the rocket launcher, and when the pressure gets too high, clear a path with the plasma rifle and make some space for yourself. When the archviles arrive, you're on your own. This is easily the hardest part of Back to Saturn X, but with the help of Jimmy Paddock's incredible MIDI, victory is within reach. The horde is dead, you've got one more nasty fight with 4 archviles and a corridor full of mancubi. To finish the map, hit 2 switches and the door to the port will open, where you can make your escape aboard the unsinkable Fats Domino. Spoilers, it's not unsinkable. Grade A. Difficulty A. Map 25. The unsinkable Fats Domino. I've been a bit hard on Back to Saturn X, I won't deny it. Some of it is just not my cup of tea, but this ending, man, I don't know why, but it kind of hits me emotionally. It's so serene and beautiful, innocent even. It's unlike any closing map I played in Doom, and next to Ancient Aliens, it's my favorite ending to a Megawad ever. Grade A, with no grade for difficulty. So, Back to Saturn X Episode 1 is best taken as an entire package and preferably over several days. It is home to some of the most lush and lovingly crafted maps you can find for vanilla Doom. The music is stupendous, and I think it's a great place to start for Doom players who want to get into custom WADs. That said, I do think it suffers from repetitive level design and lukewarm fights. The WAD invests in continuity to a fault, and the action is kept at a dull roar. Here's the best way I can describe my feelings about this WAD. If Back to Saturn X were a Doom monster, it would be a spider mastermind. It's got a big brain, it's very impressive, metallic, and intimidating in certain lights, but it's also way too big, not very versatile, and a bit disappointing as an adversary. I respect it, but it's not my favorite. My final grade for this Megawad is an A-. As for difficulty, it's right there with Ancient Aliens at a B. Accessible, but certainly not easy. Now for my Dean's List. Valedictorian, Map 32, The Hard Way. Salutatorian goes to map 24 and 25 because they're one continuous experience in my opinion. Tough Skin River and the Unsinkable Fats Domino, with a shout out to the hub levels, Get Out of My Stations. Class President, map 24, Tough Skin River, and the dunce cap goes to map 12, Underground Initiations. Thank you all very much for watching, and please feel free to share your thoughts on the WOD in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think, and I'll heart your comments to let you know I've read them. This is Mount Pain 27, and I'll see you in the next episode of Dean of Doom.